people all the time say, well, you own 250 lots, like you should be making a lot of money, right? Truth be told, like I have a lot of debt on the parks. Insurance is expensive, of course. Repairs are expensive. And so, really the way I look at mobile home parks, I continue to buy mobile home parks, is that, hey, it's a retirement goal. I'm getting appreciation year over year. And at the same time, I'm paying down debt.
Is the land that you're going after, is it already entitled for utilities? How are you, where do you kind of come into the process? You're buying raw land, or maybe do multiple different strategies?
Yeah, so typically we're buying raw land, scattered lots. It's an individual lot, or maybe it's 2 or 3 lots together, all scattered. We're not doing like 100 lot subdivision where we need to entitle it and all that. We're really focused on speed.
Today I'm here with Robert Howell. Robert is a real estate investor who's specializing in affordable housing through mobile home parks and land home developments. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Robert Howell. Robert is a real estate investor who's specializing in affordable housing through mobile home parks and land home developments, currently owning and operating over 250 lots across the Southeast. So, Robert, as I said, I'm reading that off my phone due to technical difficulties, but I always like to let the guests tell their story anyway. So I'm sure it'll get much more interesting than me just reading that off my phone. But thank you for being here today. Thanks for your patience as I was trying to get on, and I really do appreciate you being here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Well, Jason, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and have a conversation with you.
Perfect. Well, let's start. Let's hear about you. Tell us about your background. Tell us, kind of what got you to where you are today, and then we'll dive in.
Yeah, for sure. So if I start with, I guess we'll start in college. I went to Clemson University, go Tigers. And my junior year, I was reading an alumni magazine and read that there was a lady who graduated from Clemson that was the Olympic torch relay director. We were talking about Olympics before we joined here, but she was the Olympic torch relay director for Coca-Cola and graduated from Clemson. I was like, man, that's a really cool job. I was a marketing major. And so I emailed her and said, hey, Julie, I'd love to come work for you. Sounds like a really cool job to work on the Olympics. I was doing sports marketing at Clemson. And so I did that. I took off my junior year and traveled around the U.S. We went to 45 states in 65 days for the Salt Lake 2002 Olympics. And that was just a blast. Had a lot of fun seeing the country, seeing large scale events. So continued to do that after college. I came back to Clemson, finished up in a marketing degree, moved to Atlanta, and started working in event marketing. Continued to do that for the next 16 years. And then fast forward to COVID, I was working on the Tokyo Olympics in Japan, traveling back and forth from the U.S. to Japan, working on the Olympic torch relay and overall event marketing for Coca-Cola. And that's when COVID happened. And I was like, well, I've been doing events for 16 years. That's all I know how to do. But there may never be an event again. We may never interact with each other again, right? So I'm like, I got to do something different. So me and my business partner at the time, we owned this marketing company. We said, all right, let's look for something to do. So we started buying and selling real estate. I'd always had a passion for real estate, didn't know much about it, but said, I think I can figure that out. And this was before things went really crazy. I could buy a house for $5,000, resell it for $25,000, and everybody was happy, right? So I did that for a year or two. And through that process, I met a guy that was selling or had a nephew selling a mobile home park. We were sitting at these 5 houses that I was going to buy from him. And he said, hey, my nephew owns this mobile home park across the street. You want to buy it? I said, sure. I'd love to know more about it. I knew a lot about affordable housing. I didn't know anything about mobile home parks at the time. But it was a good deal. There was a lot of work to be done. Tornado had come through it. It was 115 lots, which I didn't know was a really big mobile home park at the time, but 115 lots. Yeah. But only 10 homes were occupied. The rest had been torn up by the tornado, squatters, whatever it may be. And I said, well, he offered seller financing. I said, I'll give it a shot. And so I owned that mobile home park for a year. and then sold it after a year. I had a 10-year plan to build it out and bring it back to life. But eventually I said, look, this might be better for somebody else. So I sold it. At that time, I knew a lot more about mobile home parks a year later, working through that. And I bought a bunch of other mobile home parks with the profits that I made, small and mid-sized mobile home parks all across South Carolina. Um, and so today, as you mentioned in the introduction, I own 250 lots across about 24, 25 mobile home parks. So all small, mid-sized mobile home parks from 3 lots all the way up to 30 lots, and have really enjoyed that asset. As part of that, in South Carolina, if you sell more than 2 mobile homes, you're supposed to have a mobile home dealer's license. And what that dealer's license also affords you to do is buy directly from the manufacturer at a really good wholesale price. And so
Okay.
I could go directly to a Clayton factory, or I could go to a Cabco or a Champion factory and buy the homes direct from them at wholesale prices. And I saw what I could buy for, and we were flipping houses a little bit. And I said, well, shoot, if I can do this, that's a predictable way to make money. And so I started buying land and putting brand new manufactured homes on it. And that's what in the intro you're referring to, land home packages. And so now my mobile home parks are still great. They're more long-term approach for me. Like 10 years from now, they'll all be paid off and it'll be a good retirement. But my active day to day is land home projects and developing land, buying land, developing it, putting brand new manufactured housing on it, and then selling the land and the homes together. So do that all across South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Georgia. But that's my story from a real estate standpoint. I've got a
Yeah.
wife. She's awesome. She's a professor at Clemson, and we got 2 boys that are in high school. And they own a mobile home that I sold to them a couple of years ago. So I seller finance to them to get them in the business. And
There you
they had a hot water heater go out a few months ago, so I hadn't had to pay them for anything because they're repaying me for the hot water heater. But they've been asking me, hey, Dad, when's the hot water heater paid for? So now they're going to start getting their income again, which is not
go.
bad. They get like $115 each a month, which is a lot of money for a high schooler.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, I would have happily, and I mean to do next to nothing, I guess too. So, um, so a couple of things I want to touch on here. Well, first, that just sounds like kind of one of the coolest jobs ever. Being marketing and handling like the Olympic torch ceremonies, like just the concept. I'm always fascinated by finding out jobs, businesses, whatever, like things that you wouldn't even think of that was necessarily a job or a position or
Right,
things that people,
right.
and it's kind of silly. You don't think about it, but of course it's not like it's just that just happens. Someone has to make sure that's all coordinated and everything. But I mean, that's just really a super cool experience, I'm sure. And to do it for that long, pretty neat. But
Yeah, it's fun. I've been to, I guess, maybe six Olympic games. You can see in the background here. Those are my Olympic torches.
yeah,
I ran with this one here. That was Salt Lake Olympic torch. I ran with that one
yeah,
in Nashville, Tennessee. That was cool.
that's amazing. I mean, it's just, yeah, some of that, it's just, we just went through an Olympics, so you get reminded of it. It's not, it is, well, now every 2 years, I guess, because they alternate, but you
Hmm.
know, for a time it was you waited 4 years and then you got a summer and a winter Olympics, and it was like very, very big events, obviously, and so meaningful. So just super cool to be a part of that. But when COVID came along, you decided to make that transition to real estate, and you said, someone asked if you wanted to buy this mobile home park, and you said yes. It's This is a common theme, but just the willingness to say yes and like take something on like that. And you said a year later, I knew a lot more about mobile home parks than I did before. I'd actually love to hear a little bit about that, because I know you said, "Oh, I'm going to do this over 10 years," and then sold it in a year. What what was your plan? Kind of what was your experience during that year, and what did you why did you decide to pivot and then sell? Because, and the reason I ask largely is because you've continued with mobile home parks, so it's not like you said, I'm out of this space entirely. But also, I think it's a there's some good lessons here to be had for people listening. So I'd just love to dive in a little bit more on that.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question about, what did I learn in that year? I learned a lot, right? I didn't know anything about mobile home parks previously. I didn't even know how to finance them. I didn't know how to bring in new homes, so on. And so I learned that process throughout that first year. And whether it was, hey, here's a way you could have financed it, right? Or here's new homes that you could bring in, or hey, instead of demoing all the homes that were in there, maybe I should have kept some of them, right? Because it could have kept the grandfather status of the sewer and the water and such. So lots of different things that could be learned throughout that year. What I did do is, so like I said, it was 115 lots, only 10 homes occupied. And then I think there were another five that needed to be renovated that were available to be rented, but just need to be renovated. So I renovated those homes. I demoed the homes that were there that squatters were living in or drug addicts or whoever it might be to just clean up the space, and really tried to improve it. And my 10-year plan was, hey, it's 115 lots. I've got 15 in here today. I can just add 10 homes per year, right? And eventually, that park would be worth, 115 lots. That park's worth, I don't know, $6 to $8 million when it's fully occupied. But I came to that realization at the end of the first year that, hey, I've got a lot of equity. I got it for a good price, and I did a lot of forced appreciation work, improving the park over that year. And now I've got a lot of equity in the park that I don't know how to necessarily tap into unless I sell it. And my feeling was, hey, I could sell it. I could take advantage of that equity and make money faster than waiting the 10 years to have a fully occupied park. Um, and so that was the reason I sold it. And actually, I guess it's just now 4 or 5 years later. I'm going through that same process now with the parks that I own today. I buy them at a decent discount because of the condition they're in, and then I improve them and build that equity. And so now I've got all this equity in these parks that I own. And for me now, it's like, well, instead of waiting 10 years for them to all be paid off, could I do something with that equity today, whether that's selling or maybe it's refinancing? And instead of waiting 10 years, I can get that same result in 5 years.
Are you planning a remodel or construction project? Overwhelmed by the process? Over budget? Extended timelines? Strained relationships? We are all too familiar. At Lark Construction Services, we help homeowners and business owners take control of their construction journey, from reviewing bids and contracts to catching red flags before they become costly mistakes. Our Clarity Audit is a one-on-one expert review of your plans, estimates, or current progress, giving you the peace of mind and a defined action plan to move forward with confidence. Don't let confusion lead to costly errors. Visit larkconstruction.com and schedule your free call today. Lark Construction Services, saving you time, money, and stress.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess the opportunity cost of the capital that's kind of locked up in that equity, if you can access it somehow to make a higher return with it. So you continue to buy mobile homes, and sounds like, I mean, honestly, I think sometimes people put too much stock into buying big or buying, like that it's so different. I think at the end of the day, like getting some assets that you own is a good idea, whether and getting, some somewhat smaller, if that's where you can start, is also a good idea. And then you can do exactly what you're talking about, is kind of grow some equity and then kind of stair step up. Why talk a bit more about your decision to kind of shift gears? You said you sort of forced into being a broker in South Carolina, but why? What about that is more appealing to you?
For land home development?
Yeah.
So, people all the time say, well, you own 250 lots, like you should be making a lot of money, right? Truth be told, like I have a lot of debt on the parks. Insurance is expensive, of course. Repairs are expensive. And so, really the way I look at mobile home parks, I continue to buy mobile home parks, is that, hey, it's a retirement goal.
Yeah.
I'm getting appreciation year over year, and at the same time, I'm paying down debt. So when that debt's paid off, then it's a huge difference in terms of what the cash flow is. And so, and I have a third party management company that manages the parks for me. So I've got a lot of time. And I said, what can I do as an active income? And I said, well, I understand affordable housing. I understand manufactured or mobile homes. So let's just stick to that and do these land home packages. So really, I see it in two different buckets. Mobile home parks is long-term investment strategy. Short-term investment strategy is a land home package, because I'll do a land home package. I start today. In 4 to 6 months, I'll have my payout from that.
Okay. And so you're buying land and essentially turning it into a mobile home park in
Well, yeah, not a mobile home park. Think of it as compare it to site built houses, to a home
Okay.
builder that's
Okay.
building spec houses.
Yep.
Kind of same deal. The home builder buys the land, he site builds the house, and then he sells the house and land together. We're doing the exact same thing, except with a manufactured house that's built in a factory, shipped to the site. We set it up, and then we sell the land and home together.
I see. Okay. So it's essentially single unit, if you will. It's just the manufactured home instead of a, like you said, a spec built house.
That's right.
Okay. No, that, and you said, what states did you said Georgia, South Carolina?
Primarily in South Carolina, but we also have projects in Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia.
Okay. Okay. 4 to 6 months to turn that. I guess, is the land that you're going after, is it already entitled for utilities? How are you? Where do you kind of come into the process? You're buying raw land, or maybe do multiple different strategies?
Yeah, so typically we're buying raw land, scattered lots. So it's a individual lot, or maybe it's 2 or 3 lots together, all scattered. Not we're not doing like 100 lot subdivision where we need to entitle it and all that.
Gotcha.
We're really focused on speed, and so hey, let me buy a single lot, and it's raw land, so it still needs utilities, but typically we're doing a septic tank,
Okay.
and we're getting public water, or maybe we're getting a well, and that can be pretty quick within a few weeks, and then we're off to the races of building a house with the factory, and then
Yep.
selling it.
Okay. What is I think people have some misconceptions about mobile homes and manufactured housing and things like that, in terms of, uh, I mean, people talk about, the trailer park type of stigma that goes along with
Right.
it. But interestingly, I mean, I've learned a lot about, that's not always, certainly those exist, but like that's not always the case. And I've learned that through the podcast. I've also realized, I mean, we talked about this. I'm in Los Angeles. Like, there are mobile home parks in Malibu. People think of
Right.
Malibu as this place that's, has $10 million homes on the beach, and it does. But it also has a couple of mobile home parks in Malibu too, and in the surrounding areas. So your idea that, maybe the idea that people might have in their head that it can't be a nice place to live, I think is proving pretty untrue. And also, we have an affordability crisis virtually everywhere. And so how do you think about that? How do you think about, okay, here's this affordability problem that needs to be solved. How do you think about it in relation to kind of your business strategy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. When I started, I had that same stigma on a mobile home park and trailer park. I'll tell you a story. That very first park that I bought, the owner sent me out with the maintenance guy to introduce myself and tell them I was the new owners, the residents. And when we walk into the first door, he's like, "Man, why are you scared?" And he could tell that I was scared, right?
Yeah.
I was like, "I've never done this before, right? I've never been in a mobile home park."
Yeah.
And at that time, I was probably calling it a trailer park in my mind, right? It's like, man,
Right.
I grew up in a nice neighborhood, and I wouldn't even drive past these things, right?
Yeah.
And you know what I found out is that all the residents, as I met them and talked to them, they're just like me and you. I mean, they're of a different economic status, right?
Sure.
You know, and but ultimately, like me and you, want a good roof for our head. You know, we don't want a hole in our roof. We want a hot water heater that works, and we want, if we're renting, we want somebody to take care of us and fix things that need to be fixed. And they were the exact same way. And I have found that over and over again. Now I have 250 residents, and you know, all of them. Well, let's say most of them. You know, you come across a bad apple every once in a while, right? But most of them are good, decent people that just want to have a nice home and be able to have people over to their house and be proud of it. And so, you know, that stigma for me, being involved in the industry, has gone away as the more and more I've been involved from a mobile home park standpoint. From a land home package standpoint, it's very similar, right? You can drive down the road, maybe not in California, but drive down the road, you see trashy mobile homes, right? That people just don't take care of. But I don't think that's a representative of today's manufactured house. I actually had this
Yeah.
conversation
Yeah.
yesterday with a realtor. We were talking, and you know, if you think about a site built house, you're going to build a house and you're going to build it there at the site on the parcel, and for 6 to 9 months, that material is going to be out in the weather, right? Rain, sleet, snow, it's being impacted by that. And it's being built by people that have never built a house like that. I mean, they've built houses, but maybe not that identical house. Where on the other side, a manufactured house is built inside a factory with the same process over and over again. And it's built under standards that when that home comes off the line, it has to be inspected by a third party inspector that is representing the government, saying that, okay, this qualifies as a HUD house and it was built to quality standards. So, you know, I think there's a lot of stigmas that people just don't understand about manufactured housing and how it's built and the quality around it. And, you know, this product, the way it's built, you know, on a assembly line in a factory, you're able to build it for a very affordable price. And we're able to pass those savings on to somebody that otherwise maybe couldn't afford a house, or if they could afford a house, they're going to afford, you know, if they're shopping the same price range, it's a subpar house as compared to what they can get from a brand new manufactured house.
Mm.
90, I'd say 95% of the people we sell to are first time homeowners. And that's what really gets me excited is, man, these people, until they found our house, maybe didn't have a chance to have a first time home, right? And they've been priced out of the market, and now it's attainable for them because we're offering an affordable product. Or a couple I met yesterday, they're buying a house, actually closes next week. He's a veteran of the Army, and they got a VA loan for it, and you know they've been living in a RV for the last couple of years as they try to find where they want to live. Actually from Washington State over on the West Coast in your area. But
Yeah.
anyhow, so they're able to buy a house, and they were super excited to buy it and get their kids there, and they had some awesome dogs. But anyhow,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting. I mean, that's a great point about, you know, sort of factory built and the differences, because you're exactly right. I mean, it's we have some. I own an electrical company. We're working on some of the houses in the Pacific Palisades after the fire rebuilds from a year ago, right? So they're building these houses, and you're right. They sit out. Now it doesn't rain a lot here, so it's not as big of an issue in like the places that have a lot of weather. But it did rain a lot here. Like, it doesn't commonly rain a lot, but it did rain a lot here in January, and so the wood gets wet. Like that, those things happen. And also it's exposed to the sun. I mean, there's a lot of weather wherever you live. And interestingly, we just got asked about a job it's a prefab house, right? So same exact concept. The only difference is it's going to be attached to a foundation, or it's not going to be attached to a foundation, right? Like that's the main thing. And there is a lot of push in the building industry to go towards prefab, and it speeds up the process. It has, as you said, more exact specifications. And so this prefab house is going in the Pacific Palisades, right next to the custom built houses that are stick framed right from the ground.
That's awesome.
And so it's not really that different in terms of you're still providing a home. And so and this just goes back to that stigma thing where it's like, these are houses that people can live in. And you talked about your clients that, how happy they are about it, first time homeowners. I mean, it's just a really cool option to have that they might not otherwise have. And so just so important for, from a societal standpoint, really. So I think it's great. Where do you see yourself going to a point of like developing mobile home parks where you might purchase more land and have multiple, or what's the future look like for you?
That's a good question. And I don't know the answer to that, 5 years from now, right? And I've got a goal in my mind of, hey, I'd love to be involved in placing 100,000 affordable houses over the next 10 years. And that's not me personally necessarily doing it, but maybe it's teaching people. We have an education program where we teach people how to do land home packages too. And so, hey, could I teach you, Jason, how to do this strategy? And you go out and do 100 on your own for the next 10 years. And then the next person does 100. And so could we get to 100,000? That would be really cool to see. In terms of me personally developing, to reach that goal, my mission is really, hey, can I spread the word? Can I have more conversations like this about the need for affordable housing, to dispel some of the stigmas around manufactured housing or trailer parks or whatever it may be. And then developing, I would love to develop some larger communities. I think that would be really cool to do. The largest we've done to date is 9 lots altogether. And that was a fun project to do. And there's lots of opportunity. I think, honestly, the only constraint is funding and financing, and finding the partners that would say, hey, I'll fund a 100-lot subdivision, right? And I think those partners are out there, and they'll continue to grow in terms of the willingness to do it over the coming years as manufactured housing really continues to blow up and get more and more popular.
That actually brings up a great point. I mean, how you said sort of the willingness is growing. How do you find that space in terms of challenges with financing or funding? You mentioned at the beginning you kind of learned in that first year that maybe you would have financed a little bit different. What do you? How available is debt? How are you bringing in investors? How do you kind of arrange the capital side of these?
Yeah, for mobile home parks, the debt is available for good deals. There's local banks that'll finance, national brokers that can help you get financing. For land home development, I would say that's a developing space. In terms of how we fund our projects, number one, we'll fund with private lenders. So individuals like me or you that maybe have a little money in savings, earning 3% and want to diversify and earn more money. So we have a lot of great private lender partners that will fund projects, land home development. We also work with some local banks. So there are local banks that will lend on land home, but that's a small piece of it. And then we work with hard money lenders. And when I talk about willingness and kind of that developing market, if you asked me like 3 years ago, I couldn't find a hard money lender to lend on these. But as it becomes more popular and the need becomes greater, now there's a lot more hard money companies that have that willingness than previously, in the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. Well, and I guess need creates demand, right? There's need for affordable housing, which creates demand for the funding that somehow, financing, investing, whatever it might be. But then also those lenders are going to see that space is becoming more and more probably regulated. It just maybe
Mm-hmm.
regulated might not be exactly the right word I'm looking for, but more standardized, essentially. Like, oh yeah, this
Yeah.
is what this is what it looks like to finance a land home development or something like that, and it gets a
Right.
little bit more common. And I think some lenders have a higher I don't know if it's risk tolerance or what, but higher willingness to get involved on the early end of some sort of it's not really a new asset class, but maybe it's becoming more and more
Commonplace, right?
common, mainstream,
Yeah.
whatever the right words are. So
Well,
well
I
that's
think
good.
some of it comes to, and I don't know the right bank terminology, but it comes to, whether the banks are backed with these loans, right, or the hard money companies can resell these loans.
Yeah.
And I think in 3 years you'll see, hey, whoever they resell flipping loans to or rehab loans to will start to accept the resale of a manufactured development loan.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Well, Robert, let me. I want to switch gears here. We'll talk a little bit about kind of the name of the show is Know Your Why, and so I do ask every guest, "What is your why?" And your path is certainly an interesting one, a little bit unique, but I think uh, that almost makes sometimes to me like makes the why or the story behind that success even more interesting. It's like came from one totally different thing and then shifted gears. So tell us a little bit about kind of what you did mention that you want to 100,000 affordable housing units. So that's certainly a big deal. Helps a lot of people, but maybe personally, what's your why? What's your driver?
Yeah, for sure. That's a good question, and I love talking about it. And because if you look back like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, for me, it's like, man, can I just make money, right? Like, let's make some money.
Yeah.
And even last year, 2 years, kind of same mentality. Like, man, how much money can I make this year? And that, of course, there's the why behind that. Is like, well, if I make more money, then I can retire early, and that's great, right? And that's still a big driver, right? Hey, I'm 45 years old. Can I retire in the next 5 years? Maybe, maybe not, right? And so set some goals, and that becomes your why. Um, but as I started thinking about it like 6 months ago, I was like, man, that's a good reason, but is there something bigger? And I'm a Christian guy, and I said, well, I think there's a lot of people that we touch. Can I make my mission statement showing people God's love through affordable housing? And really, that's become a developing vision, a developing why, right? Is,
Mhm.
hey, all the interactions I have with people, being a Christian guy, I mean, my hope is I interact with you and interact with people and subcontractors, home buyers, and such, and you can say, hey, there's something different about this guy. But are there some things that I can do above and beyond, right? Like I said, 95% of the people that are buying from us are first time homeowners. And that's a big moment in your life, right? The
Yeah.
first time you own a house. Is there something that I can do for these people that really make it even more special, right? And anyhow, so it's a developing vision, developing why, but it's one that I enjoy talking about and enjoy trying to figure out. And I've got some great guys that I'm working with locally here that also do land home and kind of have a similar vision. And we're kind of brainstorming, once a month to say, okay, what are some things that we can continue to do to make a difference in this world beyond just making money and providing affordable housing?
Yeah. Well, and you said it's a developing why. I've thought a lot about at points changing the name of the podcast to the evolution of why, because it does change over time. I think like I've noticed that in guests, right? Sometimes it is you just got to figure out how to make enough money to get to this next level or to get to retirement or whatever. But over time, it changes, and so throughout our lives, I do think we have developments or evolutions of that why. So it's and it is. I mean, frankly, probably we've had this podcast for, I guess we're into year 5, but I don't know that I knew to call it that anyway. So I'm sure I've had a lot of changes in what was
Yeah,
driving.
right.
Yeah, at
I
some
mean, it's
point,
daily, right? It's like, what
right?
do you,
Yeah,
and for me, and I think about it often, it's like, man, is that is that a big enough why to get me up every single day and
Yeah.
work as hard as I can, intense as I can? And, one day, honestly, maybe it is, but the next day it's like, man, I don't want to do this, right? I
Right.
just want to take a nap, right? But,
Yeah.
so anyhow, so yeah, it's an interesting discussion, and one that, you're still trying to figure out every single day, and probably will be for the rest of your life, right?
I would. I mean, I think if you stop trying to figure out that's almost sounds like a sadder place to be. You're just not
Yep.
looking for the thing that's going to drive you. So yeah, I that's I've never even thought about it that way, but yeah, probably every day thinking, quite literally, maybe more than one time a day, you hit a hard spot in business or a challenge with family, and it's like, okay, well, how am I gonna get through this moment, and why, so I've never thought about it at that level, but it's true. It applies in so many different ways. um, Robert, when people hear this and they want to connect to you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah. You can find me online. I've got a website, howellandsons.com. Or my cell phone, my personal cell phone is 864-293-2798. And you can shoot me a text or shoot me a call. Happy to talk affordable housing or real estate or life, anytime.
Awesome. Well, we'll get that stuff in the show notes so people can find you. And you said you're coaching people, teaching people how to do this too. So they may want to reach out to kind of learn from you as well. Correct?
Yeah, for sure. If you want to learn how to do land home packages, happy to do that. Like I said, I'm trying to do 100,000 homes in the next 10 years. I need more than just me and a couple guys, but
Yeah.
we've got like 60 people that we're coaching now, and our hope is that continues to grow, and I think people place affordable housing, which is cool, but also seeing the life change that people are having. We've got a 25-year-old guy who is on his 7th deal in less than a year. I mean, that's like
Wow.
life changing. Somebody like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's pretty cool to see.
That's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, Robert, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Really enjoyed the conversation. I'm sure the listeners are going to get a lot out of it. But thank you for being here and sharing all that you did.
Yeah, appreciate it. That's a great conversation.
Folks listening, make sure you connect with Robert. Please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?